Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing Mort's funeral home from Bob's Burgers, and it's part of the ongoing project to turn Magnolia Promenade into Bob's Burgers. Content warning, it's a funeral home. We're talking about funeral homes, and also I am kind of Louise Belcher. Like a little too excited about funeral homes. So you've been warned. And if you're kind of creeped out by funeral homes and you don't like that kind of stuff, like maybe just give this video a miss, because I don't want to like creep anyone out or like make anyone uncomfortable, because that's not cool. But yeah, I do like funeral homes, and yeah, I'm a little Louise Belcher. She's kind of my spirit animal. I was that weird child growing up. Really actually, this is true story time. In 8th grade, I had to do a speech. Like, you went to work with someone. Most people just like went to work with their parents because kids don't know a lot of adults. So they just are like, oh, you're like one of the only adults I know. Parent, please, can I go to work with you so I can do a speech about what you do? But we had a family friend who was a funeral director, and I thought both my parents' jobs were super boring. So I was like, I'm going to go with the funeral director to work, and I'm going to have the weirdest, most epic speech ever. And I did. I also was kind of known after that as the creepy girl. So that's a thing. But my speech, like the year that I did it, was the same year that The Sixth Sense was like a big deal. So I started the speech by laying on a table with a blanket and whispering loudly, because it's a speech, whispering loudly at my class that I see dead people. And then I threw off the blanket and I was in a tiny little suit and I was like, I'm a funeral director. It was like the campiest, most ridiculous speech about like being a funeral director of all time ever, and it was so funny. I thought it was funny. I think most of my class thought I was really weird and kind of creepy, hence my new nickname, the creepy girl, but whatever. I'm okay with it at this point. I'm a grown person and I'm fine, and I don't have my feelings hurt at all. I'm fine. No, seriously, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I did end up working in a funeral home for a little while too, so yeah, you meet cool people. I like people that work in funeral homes. So yeah. I don't know. Also, I like Mort's apartment, so let's move on to Mort's apartment. Like, the kids go rushing in and start jumping on all of its furniture, and his apartment is just, like, so modern and normal and cool looking. And Linda says, like, oh my god, I'm not horrified at all. And it's just not what she was expecting. It's not, I think, what the audience is expecting. I don't think it's what most people expect from funeral directors, but I think that's really accurate to life, because I think most funeral directors are not at all the people that people expect them to be. I like that being reflected in the design of his apartment. I like the funeral directors from the Gravity Falls too. Like, they're just so like peppy and upbeat, and I love them. It's Robbie's parents in Gravity Falls. So about the layout. When Bob and Linda are like putting their stuff in their bedroom, Mort is watching the kids and they're like washing out hoses in some weird utility closet. But while they're doing that, Louise shouts for her parents to come see, because she discovers that he has like applied for a dating app for morticians on his laptop, which I'm like, why is his laptop in his weird utility closet? It's the weirdest thing. What is going on? But Bob and Linda hear them and come running, so I reasoned that utility room has to be on the same floor as the bedroom. Otherwise, there's no way that Bob and Linda would have heard her and come running. Like, if it was in the morgue, they would not have heard that, because that's like multiple stories away from them at this point. So I made it on the same floor, and I made it like a laundry room kind of place for the whole funeral home, because like you do have to do laundry in a funeral home. So doobie-doo, yeah. And then the upstairs, he says he has a huge apartment, so I figured probably should use the top 2 stories of the building to do the apartment, because otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, whenever they show the inside of his funeral home, like the funeral home side, like level, it does feel a little bit cramped and small, so I thought it was a better idea to do just 1 floor for the funeral home, a smaller basement level for the morgue, and then 2 levels for the apartment. But it was so much room for me to have to fill in that I was kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. And I started making up a story. And the story I told myself was that this was their family funeral home from forever ago. And parts of the apartment had not been updated to Mort's taste. So maybe like it's in his mother and her parents' taste. So maybe she grew up in the funeral home and then Mort grew up in the funeral home. And when he became the owner of the funeral home after his parents retired or his father died or whatever, he ended up remodeling parts of it. And I think probably he remodeled the ground floor level, because it kind of feels like a funeral home. Like, to me, It feels a little bit like a funeral home that was renovated in the 90s, especially the pillars. I don't know what was the deal, but yeah. One of the funeral homes I worked at, well, like there was a couple locations, but the location that had faux pillars like that was one that had been like renovated in the 90s. So in the 90s, that was like a thing, like pillars, fake pillars. Oh, I hate them. I hate fake pillars. They're real dumb. I don't like them at all. But it was a thing. Lots of people were doing it and he wanted to be cool. And anyway, so had to be for the upstairs. I was like, okay, so this is his parents' old apartment, maybe his grandparents' apartments, and his mom's style from the episode where we see her house because they rented it to Scare Louise. That episode, like you kind of see a little bit of her taste. So I was kind of basing that off, like her taste off of that, just a little bit older. But then I got a little creative with the color palette because I ended up really liking the luxury stuff pack curtains, like the teal ones with the pink and the purple with the blue. I really liked how the curtains and the coloring and the wallpaper all came together. So I'm pretty happy with the apartment. And then for Mort's, like just making it in the same kind of style, sort of edgy, more modern, mostly neutrals and pale colors, except for a couple pops of like intense bright colors like the teal here or the orange color that's in his living room. And then I gave him a zebra rug because I swear, like every time I've been in like a really, really rich person's house, I feel like they have a zebra rug. And I don't really think that Mort is like really, really rich, but I feel like he kind of like projects that he is. Like the way he's decorated his house kind of feels like that. So maybe he's getting it all pretty cheap, but he's still sort of aspiring to give off that vibe that he's wealthy. So if he could get his hands on a zebra rug, I feel like he would be like, yeah, zebra rug. That's just my assumption about Mort. But yeah, I worked in Chile for a while, tutoring like wealthy people's children. And I swear every single house had some sort of animal skin rug in the entryway when you walked in, and it kind of freaked me out. I'm kind of not cool with that. Not that I'm like a vegetarian or anything, but still, I'm not like big into like hunting for sport. It's fine. It's fine. I don't have a huge problem with it either. It's fine. Anyways, and then I was like, okay, so we've talked about flat roof buildings on commercial and how it gives you like extra space to do stuff. So I was like, I think Mort's hobby is probably gardening. So I added like a rooftop garden and I put some like other things elsewhere. And this also kind of partially tied into it being a retail lot because then I could play it as he sells flowers because I mean, funeral directors do sell a lot of flowers. They don't make a lot of money on the flowers that they sell because they're contracting with a florist usually. Like they are not their own florist, but they will make some profit from selling the flowers. But in The Sims, I'm like, what can they actually sell in like a funeral home retail shop? Like he can sell a bunch of urns and caskets, but what else can he sell? So he is a funeral director with a florist hobby, or he is a florist with a strong mortician hobby. I'm not sure. That's how I'm going to play him though. Anyway, now we're in the morgue, which, I mean, Louise is so bad. She like is freaking out Tina and Jean on purpose, and it's really funny. I don't know, this episode's pretty great. I like it a lot. And their dad ends up really drunk and ends up getting into a coffin, so Bob's in like a coffin, and then they put the coffin in the crematory, and it's just like, oh my god, the level of shenanigans of this show sometimes. It was pretty great, but I was like, when they were doing that, I was thinking, oh my god, that coffin is going to be like, that's like a pretty nice coffin. So how much is that going to be? That could be like $1,000, and they're just like breaking it and lighting it on fire. And they're like, they don't have a lot of money, and I don't think that Mort is just going to be like cool with them breaking $1,000 worth of stuff. I don't know. I was just thinking about it too much because in the show it just doesn't matter. Like they just move on. They never worry about it again. But yeah, I was preoccupied with thinking about the price of that. Anyway, then moving on to the main floor of the funeral home and figuring out the layout for that. Wanted to have an entryway and like a lobby where people could sit and hang out. They only walk through it kind of briefly, so I didn't have like a lot to go on apart from like there's urns everywhere, which is like a little weird to me because you wouldn't really have the entryway be your selection room. You would have a different room for all of the urns. Also, you don't want to freak people out when they first come in. Like urns can freak people out, so that's usually in like a separate room so that like if people don't want to go look at urns, they don't have to. Like if they're not ready, they don't have to go look at urns. Yeah. They can just talk about them. And then when they are ready to make a selection, then you take them to that room. I don't know. It's just like the way that funeral homes are actually like laid out and designed is pretty, it tries to be pretty sensitive to people and what they're going through. Like that's the whole point of funeral homes. So it's a little silly to just have like the entryway just be like jam-packed with urns. But whatever, it is in the show, so I do it in the build. Then there is also like a little chapel kind of area for you to have a small service. They usually have a TV in the front so that you can show videos of the loved one, and etc. And then I made a selection room with fancy caskets, because that's what you would have in your nice selection room. And then plants, just plants everywhere. He's just going to sell plants and urns and caskets. It's going to be his whole thing. And then I do end up moving the stairs that are there so that they're behind a door, just because even though in the show they're not, I was like, it would be better if they were behind a door so I could lock it to the public. So in the end, I end up changing things out a little bit. But yeah, that is our funeral home. That's Mort's really modern, cool apartment. And I really like how it turned out. And Bob and Linda's room that they stay in, I have their luggage just stacked there. Kind of modern, cool kitchen. The upstairs apartments for his mom and him. And that's the view from the street. I ended up adding a garage with a van and some other stuff around the outside. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.